Hello, I'm Will Yeomans, CEO of Writing WA, and welcome to another episode of Pod Street, Writing WA's official podcast. Now, today it's my great pleasure to be talking to children's author Fionna Cosgrove. She describes herself as a spooky kids writer, psychic connoisseur, and I'm glad that doesn't say psychotic, socials creator, Bigfoot advocate, but not necessarily, I've got celery on the brain, in that order. Fionna, welcome to Pod Street.
Thanks so much for having me, Will. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so by the time people listen to this, we'll have already had the launch of your new book, Sadie and the Secret of the Swamp. So it's probably not much point in promoting that because it will be in the past. But look, tell me a little bit more about yourself, how you got into this kind of writing, which I guess is for the sort of 8 to 11 age group, and particularly about the Twisted Trail series, which was prior to this new book of yours.
Yeah. So I started writing probably only about 10 years ago. I don't even know how it happened, really. I picked up my laptop. It's not something I studied. I studied marine science for a long time and have worked kind of in the science sector for quite a while. But I picked up my laptop one day and I thought it might be fun to just write something. And I've always been a diary keeper and a bit of a fan of fan fiction when I was younger, not really realising that's what I was doing, but I would riff off of other people's stories. And then I started writing from that day. I picked up my laptop, started writing a middle grade story. I didn't realise even what genre it was or what age group it was. And then I kind of never stopped. And I started entering as many short story competitions as I could. I started taking a bunch of different courses to kind of see what I liked writing and where my style fit. And through a lot of different short stories, I realised that I write quite... I wouldn't say creepy, but maybe I would say creepy. Everything just took that kind of a turn. And my voice really suited middle grade, as I found out, the more I kept writing and the more I kept entering things. And so it felt like a bit of a natural foray into spooky middle grade. And I started Twisted Trails just off the back of talking to my sister, and I thought maybe I would write a quick chapter book. So I was aiming for maybe 7 to 9-year-olds at the time when I was writing it, because that was for my niece and my nephew. And I thought, what's something quick that I could write that would be really fun? I'd been submitting for a few years by then, a few different manuscripts, and I just wanted to get to the next stage. I just wanted to be able to start creating covers and doing different things like that. And I had no intent of even self-publishing Twisted Trails. I just thought it'd be a really fun creative venture and something that I could do for my niece and nephew.
Yes.
And so I ended up writing The Midnight Manor in maybe just a few weeks or a month. And I think because there was no pressure, I wasn't writing it for anyone. I wasn't thinking about anyone really. I just thought, just write something fun and spooky that they would enjoy. And then after maybe a month of writing, I thought, well, maybe I should just self-publish this. Maybe I could just start this. And I got really excited about creating bookmarks and doing different merch and packaging it up. And then I couldn't stop myself. And then I decided I didn't even give them the present by Christmas because I thought, well, I might as well go the whole way. And so then I started finding beta readers and I found an editor and I did the whole process. And then I launched The Midnight Manor in, I think, March of 2023.
Okay.
And then I did The Ghastly Grotto about 6 months later, and then Camp Crypt was maybe another 8 months after that.
Well, it just kept on coming. It sounds like you've done so much right. I mean, first of all, this idea of writing fan fiction, because they say that the best way to learn is to imitate and then take it in your own direction. And then secondly, this idea of not feeling any pressure. You're not writing to a deadline or for a publisher, but you're just writing for yourself and your close family and friends. And that to me, that sounds like the ideal way to start on your writing journey.
I think so too. I think it's really helpful to just start writing with no pressures of where you're going or how it's going to fit, and just find out what makes you happy and how you best write.
Yeah, absolutely. So you were saying you self-published The Twisted Trail, so that's not with Dragonfly then, or is that did you?
No.
No, okay, so that's completely separate.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they're still ticking over? You're still getting some orders coming in and people are still interested in those books?
Yeah, so Camp Crypt only launched maybe, it feels so long ago because I started immediately marketing for Sadie, but maybe it was only about 6 weeks ago that Camp Crypt came out.
Oh my goodness, sorry, I didn't realise it was that soon. Okay.
No, yeah, it was not that long ago at all. but I guess the difference, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, you're so productive," but I wrote Sadie maybe three years ago, or 4 years ago, maybe. So it was before
Mm.
Twisted Trails. It's just the
Wow.
timelines of how things work out. So actually, I'm not that productive. It's just a combination of time and coincidence, I guess.
It's good to give that impression, though. Maybe you shouldn't tell people
maybe
that.
maybe we can edit that bit out.
So let's talk a bit more about Sadie and the Secret of the Swamp, because that is indeed what by now will have just been launched. And I'm just going to read from the blurb here, just to give people a sense of what it's about. An eerie swamp, a hidden lab, a grisly discovery. When Sadie's dragged to the middle of the nowhere swamp for her school holidays, she finds herself glummer than the mud-infested swamplands themselves. Things get worse when her brother comes down with some kind of vomit fest of a virus, and the owner of the swamp appears to be a child-hating, beard-growing, mud-loving creep of a professor. Oh, that sounds like a few people I know. That's very enticing, particularly for the age group you're writing for. So I'm just wondering to what extent this book, because it's earlier than the others, was really the product of your reading and sort of still trying to find your voice and hitting upon this really like fantastic idea.
Yeah, I think middle grade spooky really is my wheelhouse, and I figured that out
Mm,
after, as I mentioned, writing a ton of different short stories and
yes.
other manuscripts along the way. But I think it's what I grew up on. And so I'm a Goosebumps era kid, and
Um,
I still read Goosebumps now. But there was a ton of TV shows around the time as well, like Are You Afraid of the Dark or Fact or Fiction, Unsolved Mysteries. I feel like I was bombarded with it as a child, but maybe that's because that's what I sought out.
yes.
But I loved it, and my dad was a big fan, still is, of the Twilight Zone, and I grew
Mm,
up on those like every night. The old black and white ones we used to watch at night, and I still go over there now and we'll watch a couple of episodes. So he really imparted the kind of love for a good twist and not being able to see what was coming next, or stories that make you think a little bit, or that linger, that you maybe watch it and go, oh, that was really interesting. And then you walk away and realize a week later you're still thinking about it. And those are the kind of stories that I love and that I grew up on. And so when I started writing, I think I listened to a lot of podcasts of a lot of different authors.
mm,
And I think I was really overwhelmed when I started. I had no idea where to start, or what to even um, look for, or how to do it, and not kind of studying or being in the publishing world or even creative writing world. I felt really intimidated. And one of the podcasts I listened to was R.L. Stine, and his approach was just so comforting. And there was no pressure to how he writes, to how he talks about writing. It just made it sound fun. And so I thought of the Goosebumps series, and I thought of that kind of cliffhanger ending on every chapter, and
mm.
the short content, something you can kind of digest. Even as a kid, you can digest it in a day or two. And I thought maybe that's where I want to start at least. That's what I want to do, is like jump into something. And I think it's really hard as well when you first start writing to finish something. It can be really overwhelming to actually get to the end. But writing something short and spooky just felt like the best way to go about it for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I do like that style, its relationship to adult fiction, because if you're reading, say, a thriller by Harlan Coben, or you know, spy thriller by Daniel Silver or someone like that, they write
Hmm.
exactly the way that you've just described: short chapters, cliffhanger at
Yeah,
the end of every chapter, keep it moving. So
yeah.
it sounds like no matter what age you're at, everyone has an appetite for that style of storytelling.
It's nice, isn't it? And it's just an escape. I think all of those books for me when I was younger, it was just a quick escape from, and I didn't have, nothing was going on in life. It was just a bit mundane.
Hmm.
And I think that's also sometimes you need an escape from that.
Absolutely right. So, do you? I mean, I'm assuming you read adult fiction. Can you see yourself ever, in sometime in the future, moving more in an adult direction?
I think I would love to give it a crack. And I
Hmm.
think I have a I have a ton of ideas, whether any of them come to fruition. But I think at the moment I've got a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. And that's also a big reason I think why I write middle grade, is because my attention span is just not there for a massive 100K word manuscript or book, and all
Hmm.
the overarching characters. I just don't have that space in my head at the moment. But I think I will. I think given a bit more space, and as the kids grow up, I'll have a little bit more room to kind of plot those through in my head. And I definitely have some ideas. I've had a young adult book percolating for a while. It's
Mm.
just given the time and the space to be able to dive in, I think.
Yeah, that really makes sense. You do need that immersion and that sort of deep thought processing,
Yeah.
and that requires a lot of space and a lot of peace and quiet, which you probably don't really have right at the moment by the sounds of
Yeah.
things.
No, I mean, even right now, I'm tucked away in my husband's work car so that he can do the school drop off without anyone getting upset that I'm not there. So
Oh my goodness, yes.
it's a different time at the minute.
No, that's fair enough. So, that being said, as I mentioned before, do you enjoy reading adult fiction at the moment, or do you still like to immerse yourself in other kids' writers simply because that's what your craft is?
Yeah, I'm a bit of both. I definitely love reading within the genre. I
Yes.
love spooky middle grade,
Hmm.
but that can go. I read a little bit of adult horror. I do love, I think I've talked about this before, when things get a bit stressful, or I mean, right now, things are really busy. There's some markets coming up where I'm selling my books, and then there's the launch, and
Mm, mm.
there's a few different things going on, and I always fall back into comfort reads. So I do read a lot of paranormal young adult, and I read some cozy mysteries as well. I fall back into a lot of old favorites that just feel comfortable, and I know what's coming next, so it's not stressful, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I really love that, and I that's the kind of reading I like to do just before I go to bed because I don't want to think too much. I want to be entertained
Yeah,
and just wind down.
yeah,
Because
I
goodness
feel
knows
that.
that the day itself is complicated enough without having to think too
I
hard about
agree.
what you're reading. Do, do,
Agree.
do you find that Perth or Western Australia has a very strong and supportive writing community, particularly in the area that you're writing in? So I know there are a lot of other authors living here that write these kinds of books. And my sense
Yeah.
has been that they all talk to each other and they're quite friendly with each other and they run to each other all the time.
Yeah, I think I have been slow to get into the community, and I think
Hmm,
I especially with young kids, like
of
I've tried to
course.
get to book launches and I've tried to get to different networking events, and I just find it really stressful. But what I do is kind of, I was going to say I pick people off individually, but that sounds a bit not very warm. But I like to meet up with people individually and kind of reach out. And I have done that. I think social media, it gets a bad rap, but it's one of the best ways, if not the best way, that I've met other writers. And I've started to talk to them and develop a relationship. And then we've caught up for coffee or we've met up in different places. And everyone that I've talked to and that I've reached out to has been super supportive and really
Hmm,
welcoming, and really generous with their time and their advice or even
yes.
just their support. Um, no, everyone in the WA writing community that I've reached out to or that I'm friends with has been really super supportive.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that, and that kind of approach to more one-on-one and sort of just going for coffee and staying in touch online is really it is a much less stressful way than just throwing yourself into big events and book launches and all the rest. I'm totally
Yeah,
with you on that one. I have to say.
yeah. Sometimes it feels like everyone's getting out there and I'm missing out on all these things, but I think you just have to realize who you are, and that stuff makes me really stressed out in general. So baby steps, and I'll get there eventually.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you say, once your kids get a bit older and you've got less sort of and responsibilities in that area, I'm sure things will
Yeah,
evolve as well for you.
fingers crossed.
Okay, Fiona. Look, is there anything else you'd like to add before we leave Pod Street for today?
No, just want to say thanks so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have a chat.
No, you're most welcome. Actually, I should ask you. This is probably the most important thing. Where can people buy
Oh.
your books, and what's your website address?
Yeah, so my website is Fionna with two N's, fionnacosgrovewriter.com. And all my books will be available from there. And I do up book boxes with bookmarks and some lollies and some other little like door hangers and little gifty things that can be packaged up. And also you can get Sadie from Dragonfly Publishing from their website.
Of course. Fantastic. Well, thank you again. You have a lovely day. Hope it's not too
Thanks,
busy
Will.
for you, and look
Oh,
forward.
I think it's going to be a little bit, but yeah.
And because we're talking today, the day before the weekend of the launch, I can get to say I will see you soon.